Nick, thanks so much for joining us today. As we begin, can you say a few words about your current role and the organization?
Yeah, no, great. Thanks for having me, Misha. So it's Nicholas Moy. I'm the CISO for Scrut Automation, and we're a B2B SaaS company. We provide governance, risk, compliance automation for our customers.
Hmm.
I'm responsible for all our internal security, product security, our GRC program, data privacy.
Interesting. That's so basically your focus is inward looking,
Hmm.
not our
Yeah.
outward, not dealing with customers and
Yeah, no, yeah. My team, we're a big customer of our company's product. And we use it for our own internal compliance program. And so naturally, we provide a lot of feedback to the product team pretty frequently. We file a lot of bugs, because we're using it every day for our own program, folks on my
yeah.
team.
It's awesome. I think the term is dog fooding. It's like you're on.
Yeah, yeah. Or
Uh,
drinking your own champagne. If you, that's what people like to call it.
well, I like that better.
Yeah.
It's uh, it's interesting. So, and that's gives a it gives me an idea of where you are right now in your career trajectory. But to give a sense of the line, not just the dot, can you talk a little bit? How did you get into cybersecurity? What was the first role?
Sure.
Into the,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you could call it a first role, but I guess, cybersecurity kind of, I feel like for a lot of stories I've heard and for myself, it's like it found me. Um, when I was growing up, I was around a lot of computers. I think there was just computers didn't work really well back then. And if you wanted to make them work, you had to learn how they worked and you had to really dig into it if you wanted to. I don't know, make a game work. You wanted to get a game. You wanted to make, I guess, use technology. It required a lot of effort. And I think through that effort, I just, I guess for me, it was just it was super interesting and came across, I think, a lot of things about how, went from how do computers work, how to make how to make computers, computer games, and then also just how are they connected. Everyone only had dial up back then. And I think one thing led to another somehow, and, kind of curiosity. I guess well, I don't know if it killed the cat, but I just couldn't stop. I was super interested and learned about how to, kind of what denial of service looked like, how to do kind of what you could do from the command line, what you could do from the terminal, how to use computers in, I guess, both interesting and fun ways. It just felt like the computer in and of itself was the game to play. Um, and so that might be having fun on school networks and doing interesting things there. Um, and for me, all of it was just kind of, I just didn't think of it as security. And then, you fast forward to like when I was um, in undergrad and grad school, I was doing enterprise IT and sysadmin, network admin stuff as a part-time job for large kind of school districts. And so, tens and tens of thousands of endpoints, tens of thousands of users and learning about everything there, soup to nuts. And then I didn't even know what information security and cybersecurity was until after grad school, and then kind of during it, I had met someone who was a chief information security officer, the first one I had ever met. I didn't know what that meant and what was that. Uh, and I was working on an internship that had nothing to do with cybersecurity, and someone had made a copy of that nonprofit's website to try to basically fish and do spear phishing on very specific people because that nonprofit worked with a lot of kind of people in the diplomatic field and international relations. And then the people at the organization were like, oh my God, what is this? Like, who is this? Who's making this kind of awful, not super impressive copy of our website? And they're like calling people donors and other people pretending to be us to solicit them for passport information and money. Um, And I just put some of the skills I had gained, like as a kid, to good use, and had found where is the site being hosted, how recently was the kind of the domain registered, and all the basic stuff. And we worked with the CISO for the city of Seattle at that time, to who gave us on some tips, sent a strongly worded letter just to see what would happen to the hosting companies. I mean, the funny thing is now, for like brand protection and domain, kind of like the domain name stuff today, it's still the same process. You fill out a bunch of forms, you send a bunch of letters, you send a bunch of emails, and you just keep following up until the hosting companies do something about it and tell them that it violates their terms and services. Uh, yeah, and after that, I was like, what is this guy? What is this job? Why? What does a chief information security officer do? And from there, I like had learned about it. I had got coffee with him, and I was like, wow, it seems like interesting. I'd spent my entire life around technology and computers, growing up in the Seattle area, and then I had gone to school for political science and public policy, and so after that, I kind of found a perfect match where I ended up in the Obama administration working on cybersecurity strategy and policy within the cybersecurity framework, combining my technical background with my kind of expertise in public policy. And yeah, and from there went to go work in enterprise, came back to the Seattle area from Washington, D.C., and worked at Expedia Group for 8 years, building their enterprise security program, focusing first on risk, enterprise cybersecurity risk, and then security architecture, design review, all the usual stuff, um, and really saw what it took to do kind of all the cyber defense, all the blue team stuff, all the ops, all the AppSec, all the product security in a company that was growing so quickly, both in people, both in revenue, both in locations, and just how hard that is. And I think I gained a lot of the conviction that I have in what matters, and actually what do we need to focus on as security practitioners. Through a lot of that experience, and I guess all my experience, um, and wanted to, switch gears. 8 years is a long time, and decided I needed to go do something different. And so really got fascinated, I think, with how quickly startups move, and just the kind of different trajectory. For me, it's really, I just saw it as a way to travel back in time, and like, what if I had the opportunity to work at a company at a much earlier stage in its life? When I was at Expedia, I joined, I think, when it was like 25, 24 years old as a company. Um, which is pretty old for a company that is primarily built on software. To go join startups, and what could I do differently as a security leader? How could I build the program differently, both in the people, the process, and the technology? And what could that look like? And that was really just kind of my first motivation. And the longer I did it, and I was at another startup prior to Scrut, where I was a CISO there. Was really kind of just seeing there's so much more opportunity, so much more collaboration. Uh, Big companies are very good at taking up all of your time. They are really monopolizing your time. I guess that is their economic incentive.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah,
it's also smaller organizations tend to move faster. They make decisions faster, and even though the footprint may be smaller, but you, you have smaller meetings and smaller group of people that are decision makers or stakeholders. And uh, I used to work for the Coca-Cola company, 35,000 people, and then I worked for a startup with 3,000 people, and then I joined a buddy of mine that was a team of three when we started, and just it seems like with there is an inverse relationship between the number of people and the velocity of decision making and just how the organization moves. But it's amazing they have
100%.
such a diverse range of experiences, from education to public policy to corporate side of things, and of various scale. That's you've seen it all. From that vantage point, what would be your advice for some of the junior practitioners or maybe someone who's trying to make a career switch from technology to cybersecurity, they're just getting started. What would be your advice if you could talk to yourself, I don't know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago? What are the top two, three things you would have advised yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. I know. I get it a lot. I try to spend a lot of my free time. I participate every fall in a mentorship program with undergraduate students and graduate students at the University of Washington, and I'll be guest lecturing a few courses at the university's business school. They have a new executive cyber leadership program for CISOs, mid-career IT executives, and technology executives. I guess on this topic specifically, and if I were to give someone advice, if I were to travel back in time to give myself advice, a lot of it would be, you know, talk to whoever is doing something that looks like it could be interesting for you. I think about the best way to get what you want isn't what you think. Because if you limit yourself to what you know today and you say, I have to be the sole kind of source of what I could be doing 5 years from now, you're going to be severely limited in what you can imagine. You just lack perspective and experience, even if you have decades of experience in another field. We don't know what we don't know about what we could like and what we could be inspired by. And you have to give yourself as many opportunities as possible for motivation to find you. I think that's the way I think about it. And the framework is sort of like the more people you talk to, you reach out to. Don't reach out to them purely because it's transactional and you think they themselves are just going to be there to give you a job or give you a contact. Um, you'd be surprised. Like you're more likely to find motivation from the people you talk to who just there's something about it that is interesting or intriguing and that sparks your curiosity. And your career will be significantly more rewarding in, I think, all ways in that point because it's just very hard to be motivated and to achieve in your career if you just don't care. I mean, a lot of us have been in times and places in our lives where we didn't care as much because it wasn't exactly the thing. And when we figure that out, most people, that's usually, when the time's up and you say like, I gotta go. Um, and if you're early in your career, you have almost nothing to lose. You need to go just, whoever's doing anything that just seems remotely interesting to you, you have to treat that interest and that curiosity with kind of, I think, care, because it's easy to forget about it, to get caught up in the need to, I don't know, keep up with whatever kind of societal pressures there are. But like the societal pressures will always be there. Don't worry about them. They won't go away. Just focus on your motivation. And treat the motivation like the fuel that you need to like drive you in your career. Because you'll need it because there will be awful days, weeks, and months, and hopefully not years. But the motivation is what keeps you through it. It's not because every day is rainbows and unicorns. I think you can't manufacture motivation, but you can discover it. And I think if you don't give yourself
I
enough
just
opportunities, it's like you know.
I
So
guess it's if you're curious and self-aware, right? So you can find this spark, and then if you tend to it, it can grow into the fire that can sustain you for a long period of time. Because to your point, if you can be passionate about something for an extended period of time, then you're going to either burn out or just lose interest and disengage. So
yeah,
it's actually very good advice. And kind of to follow on, I think it's excellent advice for someone to try different things early on because the downside risk is so small. I mean, if okay, you fail, you try something new. As long as it's iterative and fast, as long as you don't stuck in kind of on one path, but you can switch and you structure it, those assignments, those engagements in a way that's it's a pilot, it's a tryout of
yeah,
sorts. And then if it does look amazing, exciting, you kind of double click and follow through. And
exactly.
sometimes what I see in professionals or executives that are a little bit further along is that the curious the curiosity was mostly around the technical aspect, whether it's computers or chasing hackers. It's almost like a game of chess, if you wish, right? Or which is what attracted them to the field in the first place. But as they move along on the career ladder, it takes a lot more soft skills, managing expectations, communication with your team, with your peers across the organization, getting consensus, talking to the board, and it's sometimes it's not trivial. Do you have any advice for? You mentioned you teach mid-career executives. What are the top takeaways that you give them?
Yeah, I think it's don't assume, I guess if you don't really truly know, don't assume that it's what you want to do. I think your career doesn't necessarily have to be, how do I just manage more people? I've seen some of the smartest people become the most miserable people managing more people because what truly motivated and inspired them was something that got away from them. And then I think if you do want to be a leader in security, you want to go be a CISO at a big organization or even a mid-market organization or even a startup, you have to be more, you are always going to be more than a security person. Uh, just the way a marketing leader, a product leader, a whoever leader has to be more than just the function and expertise that they bring to the table. They're part of the team that runs that business. You're a bona fide executive at that company, oftentimes an enterprise, a large enterprise with tens of thousands of employees. The CISO, who's a VP, SVP, whatever it is, a leader in the company is also just a GM in the company. You have a cost center, you have a budget, you have stakeholders, you have the CFO committee to present to, you have annual plans to put together, you have to manage the give and take with your peers and others who you need something from, who they need something from you to achieve your objectives. You do not operate in a vacuum. And uh, if that doesn't sound like it's worth doing, I'm not sure anyone finds it inspiring, but if that doesn't sound like it's important to you and that's not something you want to spend time on, you can't go into the job and say, I want this job, but I don't want to do any of that. And just
Certainly.
try delegating it all you want. You can delegate it, sure. I've worked for many people who have delegated a many number of things to me, um, but still, buck stops with you. If you're a bona fide director or officer of a company, or even short of that, as a senior executive, you are expected to have a point of view that goes beyond your technical expertise. As a leader who manages the ramp for headcount, who looks at, what's coming up in the company's kind of big objectives, what is going to drive earnings, you have to understand the business because you have to understand what motivates and what incentives exist for your peers. And if you don't understand your peers, you'll be a terrible security leader because I don't know what initiative you can achieve at scale that doesn't require some amount of buy-in or change management or negotiation. It is a different kind of job. Um, you are not the most technical person. I think a lot of us have gotten really far in our careers being the most knowledgeable and technical person on cybersecurity because so few people, it seems like, understand it. It has a lot of technical things. As you said, it has the sort of adversarial piece about it because, hackers and threat actors they're not like the weather. They are actual people. They have motivations, they have incentives. Organized. There's organized crime. There's nation states. There's individuals. It's a whole thing, right? And so it's very different. But when you're an executive at a big company, I mean, you are 20% a security person, 80% a business leader. And you just have to accept that reality and trust that, like, if you do the 80% well, your team who's doing all the security work, you can help them go a lot further and you can make a lasting impact. Um, I don't know, a lot of people aren't really signed up for and prepared for that. And part of the motivation in the person I'm collaborating with at the University of Washington on that program is when I was talking to him, he was telling me that he felt like a lot of IT and CISO kind of executives, they're not really given preparation the way a lot of other future CMOs, future CROs, future other leaders of the company get all this kind of more, somewhat more predictable preparation to become leaders, where it's more obvious. Like this person should go be a GM of a small P&L. They should go do this. They should go run a few different verticals or a few different lines of businesses. This will prepare them to be kind of broad spectrum leaders of the company. CISO is rarely going to be the one who's going to be offered, like, hey, you should go be the GM of another part of the business. Like, that's never going to happen. I mean, they need that person so specifically in that thing, but at the same time, it's unfair. And so, I mean, you have to find it different in different ways. And the hope is that, and a lot of my peers that I talk to, there's a lot more communities, like Affinia and others that I think are spending time to bring security leaders together so they can learn from each other and their peers and other programming. Because, I mean, it is what is needed.
Hmm.
We do have to have a group of people who want to do that. But there are
Yeah.
there are paths for technical leadership too, uh, to be to remain very technical and do that. And I think that's becoming a little more apparent, and so people don't have to force themselves into honestly into a job that's not a job everyone wants. Everyone thinks it's the only job, but it's not. There's a lot of great jobs out there for
Well,
security people.
I think it's very good perspective that you may think you know what you want, but once you get there, you'll be disappointed. So there was someone posted on LinkedIn. Everyone in cybersecurity wants to be a CISO. Every CISO wants to do something else,
Yeah.
and it got like thousands of likes and comments. But I think it was more kind of along the lines of personal liability and stress and
Yeah.
pressure and do more with less and all those other fun stuff. But I think it's a very interesting insight that as you go along your career ladder, then the first steps that you're 100% technical, but as you go up, as you said, at the CISO level, only 20% of your job requires technical insight, and the rest you need to be a business leader and you need to be aware. And if there are certain not deficiencies, but certain kind of opportunities to learn along the way, whether it's coaching or mentorship, it's certainly not something you can overlook, because I think maybe it's a generalization, but I know some people tend to not value, let's call them soft skills, as high as technical skills, and I think it's an oversight.
Yeah, no, I think if you want to be a CISO or you are a CISO today and you don't spend your time on these soft skills, on negotiating kind of the politics of your company, who is doing that for you then? Because if you're not the one doing it for your department and your team's going to suffer. Your team is going to run into a brick wall like the one you're sitting in front of when they try to go get something done with the engineering org, with the DevOps org, with SRE, with the product teams, because they're spending 100% of their time doing AppSec, doing SecOps, doing architecture, doing product security, doing pipeline security for code development. But if you aren't spending any of your time being a business leader and you're expecting somebody else to be doing that, I hope you're not, it's just going to fall. I mean, you know what they say, right? It's like shit rolls downhill. It's just going to fall to your AppSec manager to now also be a frontline manager and juggle negotiating the politics of the company for you. I mean, and I think, leaders have to be honest. Like, if you don't do that, who will do that? The CMO is not going to do it for you. CFO's got a job. CIO is a different job. Everyone has a job. And I think a lot of times, and I think it goes both ways, to be fair. As a profession, it's all very new in some ways, but a lot of the attention is given to every other field, it seems like. And so then CISO say like, well, no one cares about us. We don't get any of the training. One day we're told to be the most technical person in the room about how to stop hackers. And then the next day we're asked to look at spreadsheets, cost centers, headcount ramps, performance management, and all this stuff, and there was like sort of nothing in between, no progression. Kind of, you just go, you just be a good security person, and then one day you're somehow a business leader and you have no preparation. But a lot of other parts of a company, their leaders have been dealing with changing budgets, moving goalposts. Marketing teams are asked to produce more customers in the pipeline with less money. Sales teams need to have higher quotas at the same compensation. It is no different that every part of the business is always expected to do more for the same amount and become more efficient, become more effective. And it does feel unfair, but it's also not unique to security. Security is hard, but I think we set ourselves up for failure if we say like we're the only ones dealing with constraints.
Yeah. Well, and it's as you mentioned, um, being honest with yourself in terms of what you want and not going for the shiny penny and making your own decisions. Maybe CISO role is not for you for all those reasons. Maybe if you like
Yeah.
the technical aspects of it and not the political aspects, then maybe there is a different path rather than kind of straight up on top. And again, as long as you are honest with yourself and self-aware and curious, it's I'm sure there are so many different paths within cybersecurity that are available. So there are plenty of opportunities out there. Switching gears a little bit, Nicholas. I know we're coming up on time. Um, part of what makes cybersecurity interesting, in addition to this adversarial nature of it, is that it's always changing. Technology is changing, regulatory environment is changing, geopolitics comes into play, societal changes reflect just the fact that how technology, the ever increasing role technology is playing in our lives at all different levels. There's never a dull moment, and there are trends that are slowly developing. There are shiny pennies everywhere. Um, it's sometimes hard to discern what's signal, what's noise. For cybersecurity practitioners, in your view, what are top two, three trends, technologies, threats that are top of mind?
Hmm. I I mean, I have a lot of strong biases on this. I think the things that people in cybersecurity need to focus on are how their colleagues and how their peers and how their companies are adopting different technology and trends. So today, this week, that will be LLMs, that will be agentic applications using LLMs. Next week it will be something else. Whatever it is, I think cybersecurity professionals need to spend more time looking at and understanding the behavior of their company when it comes to how they use technology, because if you get caught up on like this thing, it'll just be different next year. And it was something last year. And it'll be something that, the year after that. The technology trends I've seen, whether it was before cloud, people were spending a lot of time debating which databases were better. Everyone was like, let's go to NoSQL. And then and everyone said, let's put everything into every database, documents, unstructured, who cares? And then and we're like, oh, we need to do machine learning, and then we need to migrate everything to AWS. I think that's just part of the job. But like those things, the change is so constant, you don't even have to plan for it. It's just gonna happen. You need to plan for. I think there are things in spite of that change that don't change as frequently. Like as much as the technology changes, if a company's business out what they do to exist and survive and make money, you have to understand that. You have to understand how your company is using technology today and what the company might look like as it changes. So you have to understand like, will my company have more people? Less people? Will we be in more places or less places? That will affect your strategy and how will you do IT security? What will your workforce look like? Will you be in offices? Will you be in co-working spaces? Will you be remote? And and where will things be hosted? What will you be reliant on? Is your company shifting to a model where they're going to invest in some co-locations and repatriating some workloads from cloud because it's too costly? Uh, Whatever it is, like it's more important for you to understand like where is that all going, because those changes will be gradual until they're apparent, but like they happen in little ways. And I think the only way to prepare yourself for that is actually know what's not changing, and then you can isolate what is, and then deal with the delta. 'Cause a lot of it, whether it's like AI right now, LLM applications, like there's all this application on top of LLMs that's like kind of all the same problems, all web applications, all the same crap, hasn't changed in like 10 years. And then, now there's a new element. You need to understand that delta, um, and how it relates to everything else. If you spent enough time understanding how everything else worked, and so, I mean, tongue in cheek is like, I don't know if all of us fully understand the complexities of all our web applications and what we have running in prod to begin with. So, and none of us, right? As you said, none of us have enough time, none of us have enough budget, none of us have enough people. Ruthless prioritization has always been kind of key to success in our field. And if you know what that is and where that is, then you can focus on the delta, like, hey, what kind of risks are being introduced to our production applications from using third-party LLMs, from hosting local LLMs, and whatever that is. People can worry about post-quantum, whatever, cryptography, but they don't even have patched WordPress servers. So it's like, I guess it's sort of like the post-quantum cryptography problem is not your problem. Like,
For sure. No, it's so true because there was Senate hearings about a major breach at one of the largest healthcare providers in the country, and with a few questions, they found out that multi-factor authentication was not turned on, and that was the
yeah,
access point, and effectively that's caused the breach. So basic hygiene, if it's not addressed first, then all shiny pennies are for nothing. It's really and what you said, that the only constant is change, it certainly can apply, and certainly probably can apply to the future. Well, Nicholas, this was super informative and fun. Thank you for taking your time for this. Where can people find you? What's the best way to connect?
yeah. LinkedIn's probably the greatest place. So, find me there. I guess a lot of us are there for better or worse. And, so Nicholas Moy, and you can find me on LinkedIn.
All
And,
right. Thank you so much.
thanks for having me, Misha. It's great to be here.
Absolutely.
Take care.